So in this week's video, I'm sharing how to break up with friends and toxic people. So you're going to learn 2 ways to do that. An indirect way, which is easier, and a direct way when you're ready. But if you're new, my name's Michelle Ferris. I'm a psychotherapist and I love helping people create relationships that work. So friendships in any form are really the super glue of life. They get us through the good times, the bad times. They really make life more enjoyable. But when they're toxic, they can be extremely difficult to get out of. So I'm going to give you some ways to break up with friends and toxic people. And if you're codependent like me, you're probably going to want to start with the indirect route because it's the easier, softer way. But it also means that you might have to consider the direct route. So let's get started. So here are some indirect ways to break up with friends and toxic people. I want you to practice detaching emotionally from them. This is key because the first step in realizing that you don't want to be as close to someone is to start practicing detachment. And what I mean by that is start removing yourself, which is going to create some much needed space in the friendship. So instead of pretending everything's fine, you're going to start to vote with your feet, which means you're going to start spending less time together. You're going to not be as available. This doesn't mean that you're going to ghost them though. What I mean is to just start being less available to them, which is step number 2. I want you to be less available without being inconsiderate. So I don't want you to never respond back to them. That's not what I mean. What I mean is if you are responding immediately to texts and phone calls, I want you to wait. Even if it's just an hour, then a couple hours. Start creating more distance between the time they contact you and the time you respond. But again, we don't want to be inconsiderate. But it is going to be a change. And this is going to send a message that you are not going to be as available for that friendship. And again, this doesn't mean you're ghosting them or giving them the silent treatment. We don't want to be mean or uncaring. We just want to preserve our energy. And what detachment does, especially in toxic friendships, is it gives us more space to figure out what we need to do next. Because when we're always connected, it's really hard sometimes to make clear, well thought out decisions. Now, if you've ever been in a toxic friendship, say me too in the comments. I'm right there with you. These tools are going to help. The next step for how to break up with friends and toxic people is I want you to share your concerns with them. This means that you've taken some time, maybe done some writing beforehand, to get really clear on what your concerns in that friendship are. Why are you considering doing a friendship breakup? Because those are really important things to consider and to possibly share with that other person. Now, this means we're getting into more the direct route of doing a friendship breakup. But here's the thing, as you're sharing your concerns, their reaction to that is going to tell you a lot about whether or not the relationship is salvageable. Because for instance, if you share your concerns and they get mad at you or they gaslight you and make you feel crazy, that's a really good sign that this friendship is toxic and you probably need to consider leaving it at some point, or at the very least practicing more detachment. So how do you share these concerns when you're talking to your friend? My rule of thumb is you want to express yourself in neutral terms. You don't want to give reasons that are about their character or about something they're doing wrong. You don't want to blame them or criticize them for the friendship not working. You want to describe your concerns in a neutral way, and I'm going to give you some ways to do that. So you might say, I noticed that the only time you really call me is when you need something. And I realize that doesn't work for me anymore. That's a neutral way to put it. Another example would be, I noticed that when we get together and talk, you tend to do most of the talking and I tend to do most of the listening. Again, notice how soft that is. We're not attacking, we're not criticizing, we're just noticing what the behavior is that isn't working for us. Now, if their response is to make you wrong or make you feel crazy, like that's actually not happening, you're actually doing that to them, that's going to tell you the health of that friendship. Because when somebody reacts negatively and actually turns it around on you and blames you for you sharing your concerns, that's a toxic behavior. And that's probably going to reinforce your desire to leave and break up that friendship. The next step for how to break up with friends and toxic people is I want you to try setting some boundaries. So maybe when they ask you to do something, you say no, you don't have time. Or you're going to start spending less time together. You may not be available for favors and doing things with them that you once did. And you may say, I realize I'm just not as available anymore. You can say something like that and see how they respond. Because when we set boundaries and somebody disrespects them or tries to dominate us to get us to do what they want, again, that's a toxic behavior. But if on the other hand, you start setting boundaries for less contact and they respect that, and they don't contact you because they realize you need space, that's a really good sign that maybe this friendship is salvageable because they're respecting your boundaries. So another thing that happens when you try to break up with friends is that a lot of people don't want to do it, so they avoid it because they don't want to hurt the other person's feelings. And that's why giving neutral reasons for the end of the friendship can be really helpful. And I'm going to give you some examples. I notice that we just have different interests and we aren't as bonded as we used to be. Or I notice we have different values, or we want different things in friendships. And I really wish you well, but this relationship just isn't working for me anymore. So when you're giving your reasons for the friendship breakup, I want you to do it in two ways. One is I want you to describe the behavior in a neutral way. How somebody reacts to us, as long as we're saying it in a kind but firm way and we're not blaming it all, we really have to let go of how the other person is going to receive that information. Because how they react is much more about them and who they are than who you are and what the friendship meant to you. Because I don't want you to take their reaction personally. I just want to focus on my part, doing it kindly but firmly. I can't control how the other person is going to react to that information, and neither can you. Now, the next thing I want you to do for deeper healing is go get my Codependent Friendship Guide, where you're going to learn how to heal yourself in these one-sided friendships so that you can free yourself and start creating healthier friendships. Thanks so much.